Welcome to another 21 Hats Dashboard. I'm Lauren Feldman, and I'm here with Tracy Bech, who is co-author of the 60-Minute CFO and CEO of Driven, which facilitates CEO forums. Welcome back, Tracy.
Hi, Lauren. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to have you here. Tracy, you recently sent out a newsletter in which you pointed out what you called a painful truth, which is that sometimes driving more revenue can actually make your business less profitable. You also offered up an interesting AI tool that owners can use to figure out which of their revenue streams are most profitable. But let's talk about that conundrum first. Have you seen owners drive more revenue but make their businesses less profitable? And by any chance, did you learn this lesson the hard way?
Well, yes, actually, like all lessons that I learn and most that I speak about, I've personally walked the walk. So you can count on me to go ahead and make all the mistakes for you, and then learn my lessons, and then teach the fix for it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Happy to do it. But yeah, no, there's a couple different ways that this works. And, one of the classic ones that I'm seeing a lot is that, as founders, oftentimes we think more revenue is better. So we sort of blindly go for it. And what we don't look at behind the scenes is what it's going to cost us to get that revenue. And we're all, well, okay, I won't say all because that's a generalization, but we're pretty familiar with how much money we're keeping at the end of the day because we can see it, right? Like we can, we hope that we're pricing our products and services appropriately, so we have some money left over to pay for the overhead of our company. But what happens as you grow is that oftentimes you're still pricing your products and services appropriately to make enough money. But what you forget is that you might have to stair step up a level in your overhead expenses. So that might look like hiring more people, maybe renting a larger facility. There might be some one-time expenses that you take on, like you might decide you need to rebrand or invest in a new product, like software management tool or something like that. That's going to either long-term or short-term really affect your profits. So one of the things you have to do is, as you're doing this, is be really real about a couple of things. One is, if we chase more revenue, what is that going to do to our overhead? Is it going to cause us to increase overhead? And if that increase does need to happen, is it one time? In other words, that's just something we can sort of take a hit on one time, but then get back to business as usual? Or is it a long-term thing? Like these are going to be month after month, increased rent, increased salaries, increased, electrical or whatever it is going to be that we need in order to run the business. So in a way, you're excited because remember, revenue is a vanity metric. We get very excited about it, but that revenue isn't necessarily going to drive our profits if it increases our overhead, right? So it's a trap.
I want to acknowledge, founders sometimes think, as you say, more revenue is better because there are a lot of people telling them to think that. And, I would include venture capitalists whose, the business model that they follow is investing in companies and trying to drive them to grow as quickly as possible, get as big as possible without a lot of focus on profitability. But we in the media, meaning me in the media, I've worked at companies that really emphasize that vanity metric that you're referring to, and in part because it's the one that we know most companies are willing to share. But when you hold that up as the ultimate yardstick, as often happens in the media, it encourages founders to think that's the thing they should be chasing.
Well, and that's okay because it's as long as we focus on the keyword invest, because investing implies putting money in and watching it grow over time. So what happens is your revenue, on all investor models is always supposed to go up and to the right on a graph over time. And and the way your overhead works is it stair steps up along, right? So there's an inflection point at various revenue levels within your company that you will be required to increase your revenue. However, that investment in that, your overhead, but that revenue hopefully continues to go up and to the right. And that's where, private equity is banking. That's what they're banking on. So they're saying keep growing revenue because what they're then looking for is the next inflection point before you need to increase overhead again. So if you can drive revenue on top of that increased overhead, the question just becomes, how long will it take for us to regain our previous profitability levels. And that's where you want to get into some really good scenario planning and forecasting and, some real strategy that's probably going to be pretty specific to your business and your industry.
I think one of the strategies you mentioned in your newsletter was to make sure you fully understand what your fixed expenses are and what your variable expenses are so you can kind of plot that growth. Correct?
Exactly. Yes. And that's because those variable expenses, they take care of themselves. So as revenue grows or as revenue declines, variable expenses by the definition, their very own definition, vary with respects to revenue. So they bump along right alongside your revenue. And if revenue goes down, so will they. And that's kind of the beauty of those things. It's the beauty of also knowing which one of your expenses do that, right? So a great example of a classic variable expense is commissioned people, right? People who work on commission make more money when you do and make less money when you do. So think of the other expenses that behave in your company like that. Your cost of goods, right? The more t-shirts you sell, the more costs of t-shirts that you had, right? And then the fewer t-shirts you sell, the fewer t-shirts you have as part of your cost of goods. So your fixed expenses, however, those are what we classically also refer to as, and not all overhead expenses are fixed, but classically, generalizing, overhead expenses are fairly fixed, right? So your rent, for example, is a classic overhead expense. It just doesn't really change. It doesn't really care how much revenue you did. It just is what it is, right? It would be nice if it went down when revenue went down. I guess it wouldn't be as nice if it went up when revenue went up, but it just sits there. So you think of it as, hey, but the reason we pay rent is because we make a whole lot of money by being able to have this facility to work from, right? Or in some people's case, maybe they even rent part of it out if they're in my moving company's niche for storage. So there's lots of reasons to have those things, but they do typically stick there. So you want to know, how much revenue can I drive on top of this amount of overhead? Because that's the cool thing, is once you realize this is fixed, it is fixed until you need to grow it again. But how much can we grow before we have to raise overhead?
It would be like somebody trying to sell something to be distributed through Walmart or Target or something, where it looks great, it sounds great, but suddenly you need more warehouse space, or you need more production lines, or more employees, whatever it is. I guess employees wouldn't be fixed expense, but is that what you're describing?
Yes, and that's also a really interesting scenario when outside pressures require you to grow at a much faster rate than you had previously been growing. So it goes from what we might consider kind of a bootstrapping organic growth rate to a surge of growth. And then we have to look for, how are we going to fund this growth? And that's where we can actually say the company might be growing broke, because it's going to take so much capital to maybe fulfill that order. And so much manpower and warehouse space and infrastructure to grow at that rapid of a rate that you have to actually find a way to do it, right? And that revenue, yes, well, we definitely want it, is going to come at a pretty high price and risk to the company. So that kind of sort of teeters into the land of, are we growing too fast as well?
So one of the other things you suggest is doing a margin analysis, looking at what happens at different revenue levels. How do you think about that?
Yeah, so that's kind of an interesting thing, which you can, again, model it out, right? So that's going to help you see, you can go backwards in time and you can go forwards in time. So if you go backward in time, you can see at what different points in your business history you were the most profitable. I have a gentleman in my membership community right now who's a plumber, and he has a 70% or something gross profit margin because he's doing all the work in his company and has no overhead, right? And then you see, okay, so that revenue level, it's not a very high revenue level, but it certainly is a profitable one. It comes with all other kinds of catches and risks being, a sole proprietor and service provider. You're doing a lot of work. It's a lot of stress. And if you get sick, you don't get paid, so then you look at growing. And so he's literally modeling it out. What would it look like if I bring on more people, more trucks, more inventory so that I can scale to a new revenue level? And I said, yeah, you're not going to have a 70% gross profit margin anymore. Now, will you maybe have a 48%? Yes. And is that in line with industry averages? Yes. So is it wrong? No, it's just the reality of the cost of doing the business at that revenue level. It's impossible for you to get to, $500,000 or $800,000 in revenue as a single plumber. So you're definitely going to lose some margin as you go. And then of course, kind of intertwined in that question is also just really making sure that you're looking at the various margins of the various things that you do. So there's going to be services and goods within your business mix that have higher margin than others, right? So if we take the classic case for me of someone who's in the moving and storage industry, they can make more money on maybe like a local move than they make on a long distance move, just because of the time and effort that gets put into something like that. And then their highest profit margin work is on just packing and storage, right? Because they can pack something, they can get into storage, and then that revenue becomes recurring revenue. And they don't do anything to that stuff while it's sitting in storage. So it's really important to look at how much you are doing of certain services, or, and then same thing, like if you're selling, different things within your store, you probably have different margins on various products. What are your high margin services? What are your high margin goods? And if we're going to chase revenue, let's chase the revenue for those things, right? And be very strategic about that.
Got it. So here's what I'm really eager to ask you about, which is you have created a tool to help business owners figure these things out. I think you're calling it the 60-Minute CFO Custom GPT, which sounds a little scary to me, but also really interesting. Tell us what it is.
Okay. So it's an AI tool, right? It's built on ChatGPT. And one thing that you probably know about me by now, Lauren, is that I love big pictures. I love to look at the broader scope of things, but I get really tired if I have to do things that are down in the details of things, or do them over and over again. I don't have a very high tolerance for repeating tasks. And the very cool thing about business finance is that once you've garnered your education around business financial fluency, when you start doing analyses of income statements and balance sheets, and as you know, there are 14 key ratios that 60-Minute CFO teaches.
Of course I know that.
You know that, like the back of your hand.
Of course. Who doesn't know that, Tracy?
And I know all your listeners know that. It does not change. And so I saw a real opportunity to outsource a lot of this analysis to AI. And so the opportunity to build custom agents, right, within ChatGPT has been around for, I think, a couple years now. And there's a nice market, or it's not a marketplace, but it's a library of GPTs, they call them. So I've been spending the last 6 months just working with and training my little custom robot that is this, custom GPT. And the cool thing is that we were able to upload our book to it. So it learned everything that's in our book. And then it understands all of the methodology, our verbiage that we use that's very, non-business finance jargony. And so it does a really good job. And I would say, certainly on these things that don't change with regards to business finance, it does an excellent job of really combing through the details of your income statement and your balance sheet to look for the nuance. I think it's a really great, I wouldn't say it's totally black or white, but it does a really nice, very thorough job that, my business brain, I'd like to think is pretty darn good. But like I said, I think it makes sense to outsource this kind of thing to a robot to help you along, right? And it gives you so many more details and it's very consistent. And that's the other thing that's nice, right? It's not going to just like have a bias toward looking for inflated costs. Like it's going to look at the whole picture for you and really give you a couple different angles at which to see your business from.
And do you interact with it the same way you interact with ChatGPT?
Yes, it is almost identical. So the thing about a custom GPT that's interesting is that especially if you have a paid account through custom GPT or chat GPT, it knows you, right? Like it's going to remember things about you. It's forming a relationship with you. It knows your name. It probably, for me, in my case, it knows what I do for work. It knows about my family. It knows all kinds of things, right? It's my friend at this point. And when you get over to a custom GPT, it doesn't know you anymore. And that's specifically for ours by design, because I don't want users, this is your financial information. So I don't want it to retain information about you in particular. I only want it to go off of what you're telling it in this specific chat. And that's because of the privacy issues around having financials in a tool, right? So I think it's really important to note that we have specifically told this tool not to retain information or to share it with the broader LLM at ChatGPT, right? And that being said, I still think that anybody using AI should know that you are still interacting with a set of servers and computers that you don't own. So, that's not specific to my tool. I would just argue that you want to be careful whatever you put into these tools. We don't have actual control, and we might find out in a year that, all of this was a bad idea. But
sure,
for now, I'm taking my chances. But that's how we're structuring it on our end. So if you ask this, if it knows your name or your company's name, it's not going to know. It doesn't retain that information.
And are you making this available to the public? Are you charging for it? How's this work?
Yeah, no. So it is available for free. I think it's worth a lot of money, but I don't think that at this point it's something that I feel like I've created it and it has all of our intellectual property in it, but you're probably gonna end up wanting to pay ChatGPT for an account to use it, and I don't think monetizing on top of that makes sense. So this is free. You might, if you start to run out of credits with ChatGPT, it'll ask you for money to use it with them. And otherwise, all it takes is I think the best way to interact with it is to have open your QuickBooks reports, like your income statement or your balance sheet, export it into Excel, and then copying and pasting it from there. And if you're already a 60-minute CFO devotee, you can copy and paste it from our business mastery spreadsheet, which is the template we teach from. Either one will work. And then you'll say, analyze my financials. And it knows what you mean because we've taught it to run what we consider a full report. So it will spit out all of your ratios that we teach, those 14 key ratios. It will, if you've given it more than 1 year, it will do a trends analysis. So it'll say, your company is liquid and getting more liquid, or it's risky and getting riskier. It will highlight 3 areas of excellence and 3 areas of concern and give you suggestions for what to change. And then I've also, me, I like a good mom joke. It will infuse a little humor into it and say, there's this, it kind of, I asked it to kind of do like a superlative statement like you'd see on the Tonight Show, where it's like your company is risky, it's risking it for the biscuit, and the biscuit's getting burnt. Like who knows? It comes up with wacky things. But I think when we're dealing with finances, it's good to keep a little bit of a light heart about it. It's already
that makes
serious
sense.
enough. But what gets really cool is, let's say you're like, well, let's say it gives you your 3 challenges, and it says, your gross profit margin is strong. And if you tell it what industry you're in, it will go out to the internet and grab what it knows about your industry averages, which is really cool. So it might say, hey, your gross profit margin at 48% is strong and it's in line with industry averages. However, it has been declining by 0.5% per year. And you're like, oh, so you'll say, what is driving that decline? So now you're chatting with it, and it'll say, well, based on what the information you gave me says, it's your labor. You're like, oh, well, what should I do? And it will say, well, there's 2 ways to, fix this. One is to look to do your work more efficiently with fewer people, or the other way would be to raise your prices. And so you would say, oh, well, I don't want to raise my prices. So what are 5 ways I could reduce, my labor force and work more efficiently? So now it's doing scenario analysis with you. It's using what it knows. And remember, this is getting information from the internet, right? So I always think the best way to interact with AI is a sandwich approach, right? So first use your brain, then use its brain, then use your brain again. We can't just end on the AI brain note. You got to put your own thoughts and analysis into this.
I asked ChatGPT to help me prepare for an interview with an immigration lawyer that I did recently. And the answers, the suggested questions that I got back were pretty good, except it kept referring to the immigration crackdown being conducted right now by the Biden administration. And I said, don't you mean the Trump administration? And it said, oh, thank you for correcting me. Yes, that started under the Trump administration, is now being continued under the Biden administration.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. You're like, it's the year 2025. Yeah. Help me out here. Yeah. You got to remember that you are still the master of your destiny. We got to put our own common sense in here and make sure it's the thing I've learned about, AI is it doesn't like to not know the answer. So rather than saying, oh, I'm not really sure about that, it will just say whatever. It will make something up. So you really got to look and then you correct it and it goes, oh, you're absolutely right. And you're like, oh God, good thing I said something.
So how does someone find this free tool that they can try out if they wish?
The easiest thing to do is if you head over to 60 Minute CFO, we have a big, bold banner at the top that says, get access to our custom GPT. That'll take you right to a page where you can trade me your email address, and then I'll send you over the link to it. And you can get going. And I always tell people, I'm like, please, for your own time management, decide ahead of time how much time you're going to spend on this, set a timer on your phone, and then be done. Because
are you suggesting you get lost in this and
I am suggesting
spend hours?
Yeah, I just unveiled it to my community yesterday, and we did a whole demo. And they're like, "Thanks a lot, Tracy. I'm going to lose a whole day to this, And I was like, "Hey, man, you gotta manage your own time. It is addictive, and the thing is, it's really user friendly. So spend some time with it. It's gonna make you more financially fluent just by talking to it, because you can ask it so many questions and it will answer you. So I do recommend that.
Are there particular use cases or questions or issues that you would suggest starting with?
I definitely start. I think you should grab your income statement in whatever format you want, like if it's year end last year or if it's year to date of this year, and preferably maybe even like 2 periods. Like if it's 2 years of information, start with your income statement, because that's where everyone's more financially fluent on profit margins, right? And let it start there and get some ideas and answers there, and then copy and paste in some balance sheet information to round out the picture. But and it will when it's, as soon as it gets data from you, it runs our full report. So you're going to have so much information, and then it will, just like any good agent, ask you 3 things for it to do next, and you're just going to get carried away. So don't even worry about dead air with this tool. It will continue the conversation.
Can it help you figure out whether future revenue is going to be profitable or not?
Yep, absolutely. You give it some information to go off of, but that kind of scenario analysis it is so good at. So you can say, given what you know about my business, and remember, this is also all about asking it very pointed questions. There's so much talk about being a good prompter, right? So
sure.
You don't want to. It will otherwise play to your happiness. It wants you to be happy, right? So you have to say, given what you know about my business, if I bring on another $1 million in revenue in this business line, and assuming I need to bring on these overhead expenses today in order to support that work, this would be a great prompt. Tell me how much more revenue I need to get back to today's profit levels. Right? That would be like a really good prompt. So it's like asking it, hey, I'm this profitable today. I know I'm going to increase my revenue, probably take a hit in profitability. Tell me where I need to get to in revenue in order to regain that level of profitability that I'm at today. And start there, because then it'll give you like 16 different things. It's so fun.
That sounds fabulous.
Yeah.
What did you learn about creating your own custom GPT that you can share? I think you said it took you 6 months. Was it painful? Did you enjoy it? What would you advise others who are thinking about doing something similar?
Oh man, I would recommend doing it. So it took me one afternoon to build it, but it took me 6 months to gain confidence in it, because I didn't want to share it with clients until we had all, my analysts, my human brains that work with me here at 60 Minute CFO, I wanted them to see what they thought of these answers, not just me, who, I think it was like spot on. I wanted more of a group effort on that. So that's the 6 months, but it literally, here's the thing. It's a very meta exercise, because I used my regular ChatGPT to write the code that I then put into the custom GPT. And there are podcasts, there are resources, there are actually multiple AI developer communities. And I joined one of those. I learned how to do it there. And once you sort of listen and watch other people, listen to the directions, watch other people have success with it, I just kind of carved out an afternoon and just sat down and said, I'm going to do it. And then it was surprisingly, shockingly simple. So I would highly recommend, if you're out there and you have those busy work tasks or those repeatable methodologies that you continually employ over and over again, see if you can't build that into something that AI can do for you, and then use it for a little while. And we did it side by side. We would do our human analysis, and then we would run it through ChatGPT, and we were just like, wow, this is incredible. So it was well worth that afternoon and kind of devoting my brain to the learning of the process. So yeah, highly recommend.
That's amazing. Tracy Bech is co-author of the 60 Minute CFO book and CEO of Driven. And if you want to try out her 60 Minute CFO custom GPT, just go to 60minutecfo.com.
That's it.
All right. Tracy, thank you so much. This was great.
Oh, it was a blast. Thanks for having me, Warren.
Have a great week, everybody.